There are now more than 2,000 diabetes management apps available in the various app stores. There's only one of those digital therapeutics programs that has been recognized by the American Diabetes Association for quality self-management education and support. It's available in 10 languages and is the number one most downloaded diabetes management app in multiple countries. That app isn't part of a system that's made available by a global healthcare company. It's actually part of a diabetes solution created by a small, not quite 4-year-old American startup called OneDrop. How is that possible? Hello and welcome to Data Point, the podcast where we focus on all the ways that data and analytics are driving innovation in healthcare. I'm your host, Greg Matthews. Our guest this week is Jeff Dachis, the founder and CEO of OneDrop. Jeff has a tremendous entrepreneurial history, starting companies like Razorfish and the Dachis Group. Like many who have come from successful backgrounds as business people and technologists, Jeff decided to turn his attention to healthcare. But unlike most, he's seen extraordinary success in just a few years. As I talked to Jeff about OneDrop and why it's so different, it struck me that he's a man who truly seems grateful to be engaged in work that makes life tangibly better for thousands of people every day. And that gratitude is a very powerful driver and motivator. Without further ado, here's my interview with the CEO of OneDrop, Jeff Dachis. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us on the Data Point podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Absolutely. So you and I have actually known each other for a while, and you're actually one of the reasons that I moved to Austin 8 years ago, as you were running the Dachis Group here at that time and really kind of revolutionizing the way the industry was thinking about social and analytics and all kinds of interesting things. But since then, you've gone on to found OneDrop, and I wonder if you could give us a little bit of the story about how you came to be not only a successful entrepreneur, but now a successful entrepreneur in the healthcare business and as a product manufacturer, which is a little bit different from what you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think, healthcare was probably the last place I would have ever imagined me starting a business in. So the fact that I'm here now is I think, an interesting journey. And it's been a journey. I was living in Austin, Texas. I eat great. I'm a marathoner. I really enjoy running, and I fancied myself to be relatively healthy, and also not really engaged in the healthcare system in any meaningful way, just with normal annual checkups and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I found myself feeling like super sluggish, and then I lost like 20 pounds in a very short period of time, in like 8 weeks. Wow. And I was just like, wow, I've been trying to lose these 20 pounds for a long time, and it's finally working. But I noticed that I had in essence all of the symptoms of diabetes, and I asked my nephew, who happens to be a physician, what I might be going through, that I have all these symptoms. And he said, dude, you got diabetes. And I said, how can I have diabetes? And he said, you better go get checked. So then I went to my doctor there in Austin, and he said, you got diabetes.
Wow.
I went to see a specialist later that afternoon, right there off of Mopac and in Texas Diabetes, and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And the process really for me was going in and them reviewing my blood tests, and then I got an insulin pen and a prescription, and about 6 minutes later I was out the door. And I was like, wow, I this is a life-threatening condition that I'm now forced to deal with alone.
Wow.
And I went home and I cried. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. I didn't, it was sort of like this black velvet cloth over my whole persona. All of a sudden, like I felt completely disempowered, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I threw a little kind of pity party for myself for a couple of days, and then snapped out of that and said to myself, if I'm going to have this thing, I'm going to own it. Mm. And I started learning very quickly about my diabetes. And I, fortunately, went back in 3 days later. I don't know if you know anything about the blood glucose values, but I had a 480, 70 to 100 is normal blood glucose values. And I went in with a 480 when I was diagnosed.
Wow.
Which is extremely high.
Oh, yeah.
And, but 3 days later, I kind of went back for my checkup, and they were like, you're under control now. How did you do this? We don't know anybody that does this. And I said, well, here's what I'm doing, and here's how I'm doing it. And they said, great, keep it up. And then I really started thinking to myself, if I'm, thinking about diabetes in a different way, I wonder if there's, an opportunity to bring the skill sets that I've had in digital user experience and technology creation and big data analytics to the diabetes industry. And I started noodling on this idea, and, we had just sold my last company, and I talked to my wife about starting another company, and, she's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And
she should know better by now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do not do this. And I couldn't get this idea out of my head. I just couldn't. I was waking up, energized with ideas, and I know the spidey sense of when I'm onto something, and I started sort of doing more research on it. I started talking to a lot of people about the industry, learning more about approaches. And really then came up with the idea for what is now OneDrop, and decided to start the company and have been kind of blowing and going ever since.
So for those listeners who aren't as familiar, can you tell us a little bit about what OneDrop is, how it works? We've talked about continuous glucose monitoring on this show before. We've talked about insulin pumps. There's sort of an established industry, creating supplies and processes targeted at folks with type 1 diabetes. How is OneDrop different?
So first and foremost, I don't think I articulated this. I have type 1 diabetes. I wasn't diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is a different condition resulting in the same thing, which is high blood sugar. Type 1 diabetics have a broken pancreas that doesn't produce insulin. Type 2 diabetics have a functioning pancreas that produces insulin, but your cells in your body don't absorb that insulin efficiently. And so that's called insulin resistance. And please let me say, I have type 1 diabetes. And so, but when thinking about OneDrop, we really were looking at a view that individuals with diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, did not have access to the pieces of data and information that they need to make choices every day. So a person with type 2 diabetes needs to make choices every day about the food or exercise or medication they take. And a person with type 1 diabetes has a more hyper tuned in sense of the decisions they need to make around insulin, food, and medications that they take, and physical activity as well. And so you'd think, obviously, we're in a modern society, all of that information should be accessible to you right on your mobile phone. You should be able to access glucose information, food, calorie, carbohydrate information, medication, how much medication am I taking, what is the impact of that medication on my blood glucose values, and then, of course, blood glucose values. And yet there was not anything in market, nothing in market that allowed you to bring together the glucose information from your glucose meter, whether it be a continuous glucose meter for type 1s or a regular blood glucose meter for type 2s. Insulin pumps that people use in type 1 or manual injections in type 1 or syringes or all of those things. All of those things impact your blood glucose values, and there was no way to have that information in your phone. Food and calories, one of the biggest drivers of diabetes glucose values. The thing that makes you have high blood glucose is food, right? There was no ability to track the amount of food that I was eating relative to my blood glucose values. And then go on to take that even further, physical activity, another big thing that impacts blood glucose values. And yet I have these sensors on my phone that track everything that I do, everywhere I go, all of my physical activity. And yet there was nobody making use of that data to provide information to people with diabetes. And so I thought, this is idiotic. I got to be able to bring all these things together. So that really was the first impetus of of the first iteration of OneDrop was bringing together the data that matters to me as a person with diabetes so that I can make better choices. And we evolved that to become, in essence, a data collection and aggregation platform, because it's nice to say that I want to do things with data, but if you don't have access to the data or people don't enter the data, then you don't have any, then there's nothing useful, right? So we made it super easy to ingest all that data. We made gorgeous hardware product to encourage people to utilize the product. We made the test strips for OneDrop so inexpensive and unlimited quantities that people wouldn't have an economic hurdle to testing. We integrated it with Apple Watch and with Fitbit and with Siri and with Alexa and with all of the connected health devices that are out there so that we could ingest all of that data to help you make better choices. And then more broadly now, just in the last year, we've developed the algorithms to produce glucose predictions for people and predictive insights to give people an idea, not only what's going to happen to them, but what should they do about that information once they have it.
Wow.
And that's really kind of the forward-leaning view of OneDrop now. And we marry that with your own personal diabetes coach in app, your own dedicated human coach that you can ask questions, that you can engage with, anytime, 247-365, that you that is powered by the American Diabetes Association's only digital accredited diabetes self-management program.
Wow.
And so we've kind of got a curriculum, we've got coaching, we've got AI-powered insights and predictions, we've got this gorgeous data collection system, and it's all to drive relentless improvements for the lives of people with diabetes. That's what we do every day.
That's pretty amazing. And I was curious about the coaching aspect of it because, you talked about the fact that you had a few minutes with your doctor getting a diagnosis and then sent out the door. That's pretty rough for a condition that actually takes a lot of pretty intense management in order to get under control. How important has that coaching aspect been to the OneDrop users?
I think coaching is a crucial, component of driving healthier outcomes. I get about an hour a year with my doctor in 15-minute increments, maybe less. And the doctor really doesn't have time to really engage me in the psychosocial aspects of diabetes care, the depression, the shame, the stigma, the food, the family events, all of the things that happen in real life, the 8,759 hours a year that I'm not at the doctor. Right. And OneDrop coaches are there for you to help you all the rest of the time so that when you do go to the doctor, you're having an empowered experience. I know what's happening to me. I know what I've been doing. I've been tweaking. I've been managing. I've been struggling. And I know where the opportunities are. And I'm going into the doctor feeling both empowered, one, and two, I'm going into the doctor with better results. I mean, OneDrop users are showing clinically better results than they were without OneDrop.
So
and
let's
kind of the reason why we wake up every day.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to that. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back with Jeff Dachis, the CEO of OneDrop. So stick around.
Hey everybody, this is Reed Smith.
And this is Chris Boyer.
And we are co-hosts on a show called Touchpoint, which is a podcast that's dedicated to the discussions on digital marketing and online patient engagement strategies, not only for just hospitals, but health systems and physician practices.
In every episode, we'll dive deep into a variety of topics on digital tools, solutions, strategies, and other things that are impacting the healthcare industry today.
And while you listen to this show, we would certainly love you to check out ours.
All you have to do is swing on over to touchpoint.health for more information, and also some of the other shows that are featured on the Touchpoint Media Network.
And we are back. You're listening to the Data Point Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Matthews, and we're here today with Jeff Dachis from OneDrop. Jeff, as we were going into the break, you were talking about the fact that OneDrop users are, going in to see their doctors, empowered to have a much higher level of dialogue with their physicians, but two, they're coming in with better results. They're showing up healthier. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the outcomes that you've seen, that OneDrop users have seen in the last few years?
Great. It's a really interesting subject because we believe that we need to validate our approach and the results that we achieve clinically through relentless sort of peer-reviewed studies, papers, presentations. OneDrop has, I think now, 15 separate instances where we've done clinical studies and presented or published that information in peer-reviewed journals or peer-reviewed conferences and events. And so we've been very rigorous about our approach. We've also used a spectrum of both self-reported data, passively collected data through our OneDrop meter, randomized control trials where we've done control arms plus OneDrop intervention arms plus OneDrop plus other types of therapies like OneDrop plus insulin. And so we've got a broad base of completely from self-reported to completely, randomized control trials, proving sort of OneDrop's efficacy across the board. People lower their blood sugars in just a few short weeks on OneDrop. And whichever approach you want to take or whichever study you want to look at, all of our, evidence has been peer-reviewed and thoroughly vetted. And so it's exciting to be able to say this now digital therapeutic offering, an app plus coaching plus, an open ecosystem of hardware and software devices that ingest data and then automated decision support deliver better results for people.
Now that is actually,
and at a lower.
That is a really unusual thing for a company that is as consumer focused or as patient focused as you are, and a not insignificant investment, I would imagine, on your part, to continue to participate and to leverage the OneDrop ecosystem for those kind of studies. Is that something that your users have responded to? Is that something that has been important to them as they're making the decision about going with OneDrop?
Our business-to-business customers, our insurers or self-insured employers are very interested in ensuring that we can deliver outcomes. So we've gone through the expense and effort to make sure that's the case. It turns out that the users are not that interested in the clinical results. They
really
don't seem to care as much. Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. They care about the style and the convenience and the price and the user experience being delightful. And those are the things that they value. And when they have a delightful user experience and convenience and things like that, they end up engaging in their diabetes more and end up achieving better results. And so
I guess it's not that surprising when you put it in that context.
Yeah, give something to people that they like, they'll use it. And if they use it, they're going to see better results. Give something to people that they don't like. Even if that thing delivers clinical results in a lab, they're not going to use it. They're not going to achieve the results. And the end self-insured employer or insurance company or payer system isn't going to achieve the economic results that they would have expected from that therapeutic pathway. And so our whole ethos is around relentlessly focusing on the humility and empathy needed to serve the people that have diabetes, that have weight loss problems, that have hypertension, that have heart disease, and create a user experience for them that is just delightful to use. And if we succeed at that, if we succeed at bringing that humility and deep sense of empathy for the condition and the experience that these people have, then we will have created an experience that people use and achieve the clinical outcomes that we've described.
It's amazing. And honestly, I think you referenced this earlier, but I have to believe that a big part of being able to deliver that kind of experience and certainly that kind of results has to do with the fact that you're marrying together in this platform data that is from very different sources, very different types of data, data about exercising and data about what I'm eating and how I'm sleeping is very different than the data that's coming in through a test strip. Can you talk a little bit about the data in the system, how you're integrating it, the importance of the artificial intelligence applications that you've built on top of it, Given that this show is about data driving innovation in healthcare, I'd love to talk a little bit about the value of the data and how you're working with it.
It's a great question. And you hear a lot about AI and big data and machine learning, almost to the point of, hilarious cliche, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that just sounds like nonsense. And the industry itself, or the diabetes industry and more broadly healthcare, has been an industry that delivers point solutions that treat symptoms.
Mm.
So my blood glucose is high, so I'm going to deliver an insulin that brings my blood glucose down.
Yep.
But there hasn't been an interest in building systems. So taking point solutions and weaving them together into systems that end up helping people solve problems, not treat symptoms.
Mm.
And so what you've got industry-wide, at least in diabetes, is a lot of focus on the best point solution, but not a lot of focus on bringing together those solutions into a system that helps alleviate the problem in the first place.
Yep.
Because if I know more about food that I'm eating and I know its impact on my blood glucose values, I can make a choice to not eat something and thus then not need to take as much insulin and then thus have steadier blood sugars that leave me in a better condition.
Yep.
Versus having to eat whatever I want, take a lot of insulin, and then suffer the consequences of a life-threatening drug. And so my point being is that the data-driven approach that OneDrop has taken in ingesting all of the different types of data that you have, and then making use of it to deliver both predictions and predictive insights that are actionable for the user is, I think, unique in our industry, and one that I hope that my colleagues across the board in every aspect of healthcare delivery, begin to embrace. We are humble in our understanding of what we can do, yet we're excited about the prospect of the initial kind of effort that we've made in bringing really low-cost, data-driven insights at 8,759 hours a year that I'm not at the doctor, so that the individual is feeling, again, empowered and engaged in their self-care, so that when they need the symptom treating healthcare system, they're coming at it from a different perspective. And that's what I'm hoping our data-driven approach to diabetes management is able to achieve. We've begun to take baby steps. We're the first company in market with glucose predictions. We're the first company in market with predictive insights around diabetes care. We're moving across multi-condition management and comorbidities attached to diabetes.
Wow.
We're doing this all right from your mobile phone. And it's pretty exciting. I mean, I have to say, we're really excited about this.
It's tremendous. And as we're wrapping up, Jeff, I want to note for the listeners, I encourage you to go out and take a look at onedrop.today. You can get a sense of some of the things that Jeff has been talking about relative to the design of the product and the function of the system, the platform. It's really, it's very exciting. And Jeff, I'm so grateful to you for spending some time with us today and helping us to understand a little bit about your vision. For people who want to know more about OneDrop, maybe they are institutions, maybe they're self-insured employers who are interested in OneDrop for their employee base. How can those folks find out more about OneDrop and engage in some of the great work that you're doing?
They can visit onedrop.today, which is our consumer website. And then you can also go to, I believe it's results.onedrop.today. And contact us about a demo and bringing, sort of the OneDrop experience, an amazing consumer diabetes management experience to all of your employees or your healthcare system or your insured populations, because we do a really good job at getting people engaged and lowering their A1Cs and feeling healthier and more empowered as they approach their conditions.
Outstanding. Jeff, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, thanks so much, Greg. Thanks for having me. And anytime, love to come back whenever you have.
Thanks so much for listening to the Data Point podcast. If you like what you've heard, please do rate, review, and share it with your social network. It means a lot. And if you have ideas for show topics or guests, please email them to me at greg@healthquant.health or send a direct message to @ChiMoose on Twitter. That's CHIMOOSE on Twitter. For more information about this show or any of the terrific healthcare podcasts in the Touchpoint Media Network, check them out at touchpoint.health. See you next time.
This has been a Touchpoint Media production. To learn more about this show and others like it, please visit us online at touchpoint.health.